Hey, what's up? This is Reed, aka CarnivorousChef, and in today's video, I just want to talk about depression and the carnivore diet and how they have correlated with me sticking to this. If you don't know, I started this back in February of 2020. Currently, it is about a year and 6 months in doing it. And the reason I started doing this is to lose weight, but I know from experience that just wanting to lose weight isn't a great motivator to stick to something. So I decided to make my depression the focal point of why I wanted to stay on this diet. And if you've done this in any length, you'll know right off the bat that this is very effective for dealing with depression. I still have a good bit of anxiety, but that's a completely different video. But I just want to give you a breakdown of how I experienced the benefits from this diet and my depression, and a little backstory of how I've gotten to where I am today, you know, with coping mechanisms and diet change, where it stands now. So just a quick backstory. I remember early teens starting to develop depression. A lot of existential thoughts suddenly just came to me for whatever reason, and I didn't know how to deal with them very well. Just the possibility of everything that's around us and how bleak it all kind of seems at times. That was from a very early age. I didn't know how to channel that energy. I wasn't in sports I was very inactive. In 7th grade, I weighed 300 pounds. By the time I was hit with deep depression, I was probably 320 to 340 pounds. I really just don't know. I just remember going for a physical to play football in 7th grade, and I stepped on a scale and weighed 300 pounds. And this is probably a good reason as to why I was depressed, but either way, I still had to deal with it, even if it was just a food issue, because food issues are chemical issues. So fast forward a little bit and start to develop a lot of anxiety alongside with the depression. The anxiety is more so in the realm of just general anxiety. Later on, I'll develop some OCD symptoms and some PTSD things. But for the early teens and middle teens, it was mostly just depression and generalized anxiety. I tried some medication. I don't remember what it was, but I think I went, a couple of maybe 2 weeks at the very most, and that could even be way longer than I took it. I took a antidepressant, and it very immediately just kind of made me feel even worse, and I quit taking it because I was scared to take it. And so that just kind of went on for a couple years. I was knowing what I know now, being 31. There's a lot of situational depression. There's a lot of things that I should have been doing to better myself. There were better coping mechanisms than what I was doing. That's just how it is. You learn over time. Fasting forward just a little bit, probably 16, 17, start to develop some PTSD type symptoms, which would lead to pretty constant panic attacks. The sitting there and then ruminating, and the cold sweats would come, and it was just a crazy feedback loop of constant panic. It was insane, and that's from the anxiety, obviously, but the feedback loop that it created made it almost intolerable. You sit there all day just not knowing what's about to happen. That not knowing also makes you depressed because you feel like you're just stuck in this feedback loop. I dealt with that very deeply for about a year. It affected my social skills through school because all I wanted to do in school was sleep and just get home. I didn't want to be there really. Whenever I was asked how my day was, it was always fine. So, but that was a coping mechanism. It was an unhealthy coping mechanism now that I know that. All right, so fast forward just a little bit more. I'm probably 21, maybe 20. Go to school for audio engineering, move out to Arizona, and then to Tennessee to do an internship. Pretty happy-ish. I definitely still have the depression for the most part. The anxiety is a lot less just because I don't have time to be worried about stupid things. And that was my first inclination of situational things that could be causing these problems. And that was the first time I kind of thought about it. What can I do to mitigate these issues? But still, they were still a problem. My weight crept up to about 370 pounds when I lived in Arizona, and then the highest I ever saw it was 415 pounds when I moved back to Alabama after wrecking my vehicle and not being able to get a job in Tennessee. That was probably the best thing for me considering my state of mind at that point. This is about the time also that my OCD kind of kicked in. There's different levels of OCD. I didn't have the cleaning type things. It was more of checking. I was constantly checking things. I remember, for instance, I was driving to town one day and I heard a bump on my car and I thought I had hit a person. So what I did was I stopped and turned around to make sure I didn't hit anybody. And I did this a couple times just to make sure. I would do this throughout the day, not really knowing what was going on until I went to a religious psychiatrist or psychologist or whatever. He was a therapy session that was very cheap and very kind of him to be doing. I am not a religious person myself. I wasn't then either. But going to him the couple times I did really taught me a lot about what therapy can do. And it's not just about talking it out. It's about getting new information and new ideas about what can help you. This is the first time anyone had ever told me that I could be nutritionally deficient in things. And he suggested I started taking fish oil and maybe magnesium. And I listened to him. I remember the first time I took fish oil, it was like a switch turned on in my brain and I didn't know what was going on. I was hyper aware of the things around me, made me realize, oh, I'm unhealthy and it's probably not helping anything. I'm not saying fish oil is the best thing you can ever take, but it was literally the first time I'd ever taken something that helped me be aware of my surroundings and my being. And I'm very grateful for that, because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be where I am today, like at all. I'd probably still be in a depressed hole or even dead for all I know. I really just don't know where I'd be. Only did a couple of sessions with him and then I just quit going for whatever reason. The fish oil absolutely helped for the first, few months. And after that, things just kind of started improving and I fell into things like meditation, self-improvement. It's where I get my love for listening to nonfiction, quote unquote, self-help books, because I'm always trying to improve. But yeah, let's go forward a few years. My dad has a heart attack. He has triple bypass surgery, I believe. Within this time, within like the year or two before this incident, I've been trying to lose weight. I've probably lost a good, maybe 40 pounds. I was starting off doing low calorie diets, then I moved into paleo. And eventually I found keto, which led me to lose an additional 80 pounds within like 4 months. I went from like 360 to 280 in about 4 months. You don't really notice it, but when you look back at it, it's crazy how quickly I lost that weight, considering it took me almost 2 years to lose the first 40 pounds. But looking back, I distinctly remember being pretty clear-headed and happy for the most part. I don't remember too much depression, which obviously there were days where I was going to be depressed. That's called situational depression. Things happen in your life and you just have to deal with them. Luckily, by this point, I had plenty of coping strategies to get through it, and I use them often. Like I meditated every day for almost an hour, and I would read books. I even did like positive affirmations because they helped me at the time. That was great. And then I found myself wanting a new job because my job was obviously making me unhappy. I was a manager at CVS. Go figure, that's just a terrible job for me. And so I found myself in a kitchen washing dishes. The thing they don't tell you about a kitchen is that there's food everywhere. But it made me happy. I've had a job since I was 14. And it's the first time I realized, like, oh, I can do this all the time. Like, I could do this pretty much every day and be, at least moderately happy. I don't have to come in here and write out some stupid report to a manager that doesn't care. That's awesome. I'll wash these dishes all day. After starting doing that mindset shifted to where, like, oh, I like doing this. And I very quickly started cooking. It's just how this industry works, is like, if you need cooks, you're going to be cooking. Like, you'll figure it out. That place closed down. I was pretty sad about it. Slowly gaining weight again, so I start working back at the store at CVS. And it's, not great still. I just needed a job pretty badly. And I worked there for about 6 months until I decided to quit, and I started my meal prep business. I did meal prep in paleo fashion for a good 2.5 years. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was difficult. I didn't make much money at all, but I survived off of my own whims for 2.5 years, which is I'm pretty proud of still. Like, that was, for not knowing a lot, I learned a lot over 2.5 years, even though it failed and I didn't ever do great. Still grateful for that time, because I did learn a lot about myself and who I am as a person. But over this time, it's stressful. And who knew it? Meal prep also has food in the kitchen. I kept gaining small amounts of weight here and there until finally I came to the place I'm working at now. And the intensity of the hours stepped up a lot. And it's just because it's just an intense environment. Like, when it's busy, it's real busy. When it's slow, it's pretty slow. But same thing. The kitchen has food in it. I'm gonna eat it. It's right there. Like, there's bread and there's French fries. It's too easy to not eat. And I don't know of anybody that has that kind of willpower to not eat it. And if you do, good for you. Like, I'm just not that person. That is some insane willpower to have. But after working here and getting a shoulder injury from lifting weights, and time happens, and, you know, eating table bread and french fries. Found myself back up to about 400 pounds again over the course of 3 years. In January, I saw a video of Joe Rogan, who did the carnivore diet for 30 days. And he's been a big influence for me, just like he has been for a lot of people. I went all in on it. I just remember the first day I ate meat until I was not hungry. And it was a lot. I ate a lot the first few days. But what happened was, within 2 weeks, I remember sitting at a Waffle House. My mom was in the hospital for an infection in her leg, which I won't get into in this video. It was just, it turned out not so great for her. But I remember sitting in this Waffle House close to the hospital, and I just ordered like bacon and eggs or something, like $15 worth. I remember feeling depressed, but for whatever reason, it kind of felt like I was outside of myself looking at how I was feeling. And I've never had this type of feeling before other than doing psychedelics and really deep meditation. And I don't know why, but it was the most sobering thing I've ever had happen, because when you're deep in depression, you don't ever get a chance to see how you're feeling. You don't see a 10-foot view from over here to see like, oh, that guy's not feeling like he's all there. And instead of going into a rabbit hole that day, I was able to see what was going on and realize the situation was making me depressed. And I don't know if that's because I was clear-headed from the diet, or if you know the lack of inflammation was helping this. Really, it's just hard to say what it could have been. It's probably all of those things, but just the fact that I was able to see that, and I've never been able to see that before, is proof enough for me to know that I need this in my life. And since I've been on this diet for 1.5 years, I've been up and down, obviously. I still work in the kitchen and there's still food on the table. I still eat it. You know, from time to time I'll have a cheat meal and it's detrimental for a few days. Like I was gone this past weekend, for example, and I had beer and I had, you know, like chips and stuff like that, some cookies, and it, you know, it's affected me the past few days. Luckily I'm slowly coming out of it right now, but it's, you know, it's still one of those things. It's a vicious cycle. I'm going to stick with it. I may cycle in and out of it. I just don't want to feel like I'm helpless against my own mind. And I'm appreciative that I found this and am still doing it, because otherwise I probably would have never lost as much weight as I have, and I wouldn't be in such an awesome community like I am now. But anyways, that is my story, and if you like this video, please give it a like. I have a lot of ideas on anxiety as well, because I still deal with those pretty heavily, but they're different now. If you'd like to hear that story as well, please let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to share it. All right, I'll see y'all next time.